Dr. Margie Vandeven was appointed Missouri's 6th Commissioner of Education by the State Board of Education in 2014. She assumed her role January 1st, 2015. Dr. Vandeven began her education career in 1990 as a communication arts teacher in O'Fallon. From 1995 to 2002, she taught high school English and served as an administrator in Maryland, before returning to Missouri as an English teacher and administrator. During Dr. Vandeven's 10 years with the department, she has served as a supervisor in the Missouri School Improvement Program from 2005 to 2007, Director of School Improvement and Accreditation from 2007 and 8, Director of Accountability at Data Accreditation 2008 to 2010, Assistant Commissioner for the Office of Quality Schools from 2010 to 2013, and most recently as Deputy Commissioner of Learning Services from 2013 to 2015. Prior to her appointment as Commissioner, Dr. Vandeven assisted with the planning and implementation of the department's Top 10 by 20 initiative, which calls for Missouri to be one of the top 10 states for education by the year 2020. Dr. Vandeven is passionate about ensuring all Missouri students are prepared for post-secondary success after leaving the K-12 system. A native of Missouri, Dr. Vandeven earned a bachelor's degree in 1990 in education from Missouri State University and a master's degree in educational administration and supervision in 2003 from Loyola College in Maryland. She received a doctorate of philosophy and educational leadership in 2014 from St. Louis University. She and her husband David reside in Forestdale. At this time, it is indeed my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Margie Vandeven, Commissioner of Education.
Thank you, Roger. And thanks to each of you. I hope after you've had your great nutritious breakfast, you're all ready to move into the morning. So I would like to begin actually by introducing our State Board of Education. We are very fortunate that we actually have 7 of our 8 members represented today. They really care about what's happening day to day in your schools and making sure that we're moving the state and really working together in the right direction. So I'm going to start with our President, Charlie Shields. If you can stand up. Vice President Vic Lenz. Peter Hershend, John Martin, Joe Driscoll, Maynard Wallace, and Russ Still. Thank you all for being here this morning. So how's the conference going? Everybody doing okay? Having a good conference so far? Good? All right, good. Our team, I really need to thank our team. I want you to know how much work really does go into thinking about what should be covered at the conference, how do we handle the conference, and I really want to thank them for all the great work that they did in putting together this for you. But I really want to thank you too. Obviously, we wouldn't have a conference if it weren't for you, and I appreciate you all being here, taking the time to give us the necessary feedback. You will be receiving a survey shortly. If you would please take the time to fill that out, to complete that survey, we would appreciate it. We're always interested in how can we make this a better event for you. Next year we will be hosting this at Tantera, so there'll be a little bit of a shift in the venue there, so be aware of that when you're looking at your calendars. The dates are there for you already, so make sure you're putting them down. Let us know how we can make this a little bit better for you. So I'm going to start, as Roger mentioned, I've really been focusing on our Top 10 by 20 plan, and I'm hoping that this is not news to you, that you've all seen the Top 10 by 20, that you all know what it stands for, and that we're working together to really help provide the best opportunities for our children. One of the things that you may or may not do is go to our website and see how this is outlined for us, and I just want to really talk about our vision. We talk a lot about Top 10 by 20, but I'm not sure if people have come back to really look at the vision of our department and what it is that we're working towards, and that is that Missouri public schools are the best choice, and they do produce the best results. And so by looking at that mission, our vision, and thinking about what does that mean, I want to ask you, what are we doing in our communities to make sure that our communities understand the value of Missouri public schools? We talked a little bit about that yesterday when we heard from Senator Shields, and we were talking about what can we do in the community to make sure that people trust what we're doing. The best schools, the best results. And so we're going to talk about, starting with the why, not the ask. We can't walk into our communities and ask people to trust us, but really talk about why what we do is so essential to our state and so essential to our community. So the first one is education for all. And you heard Pedro Noguero talk yesterday morning about why that is such a beautiful thing in the state of Missouri and in America in general. It's public education that has been designed to really break the cycle of poverty. And he really clearly articulated that if not for public education, it's possible that some children's starting points could determine their destiny. We have to move away from that and help our children understand that the starting point does not determine their destiny. And it's because we are so deeply committed to public education that we believe in that value and continuing to move that forward. The next one is that it's vital to our economic growth. We know that public education is there and it builds a stronger, better educated, skilled workforce, a necessity for our state. And I thought this was interesting. Sarah, she tweeted, I've been following some of the tweets. You guys are doing a great job with this MOED 16 out there. It's been really fun to follow. But she tweeted us a slide, and usually when I'm looking at this, if we get about 20 retweets, that's pretty good. I mean, people are like, well, that's pretty interesting, 20 retweets or so. But this particular slide that basically said that the schools are not there to help children be good in school. Do you remember that one? Schools are there to ensure that kids can do well outside of school, right? That was, the last time I checked, retweeted 192 times. I mean, that's pretty telling, I think, if you're looking at the trend of the others, of what's really piquing your interest out there. It's that we're preparing our kids to be successful once they leave our systems. And then the third, of course, is that it's Missouri's greatest resource. And it's also clearly articulated in our state law that it is our greatest obligation. So that's the why we exist, and you all have different lists for your community. And when we go out, we must start with that messaging. And then we talk about our mission. So why does mission matter? You may have heard the story about the two masonry workers. A man walks up to the two masonry workers, and to the first one he says, "What are you doing?" And the man says, very tiredly, "I'm laying bricks." And he walks up to the second guy, and the second guy says enthusiastically, "I'm building a cathedral." So I ask you today, are we running schools, or are we building the future? And as we heard from Pedro, it's so essential. We're here for the bigger cause. We're here for the bigger purpose. Are you running schools, or are we building the future? Which leads us right to our first goal of the plan, which talks about college and career readiness for all kids. And so I ask again today, does all really mean all? And it was so refreshing to hear your conversations over the last couple of days. I interrupted many of your conversations, and you were so gracious and shared with me what you were really thinking about. How exciting to hear our higher ed group in the outside circle out here talking about what are we doing to prepare our special education teachers to make sure they're able to do what was described in Pedro's presentation today. What are we doing? When I walked into another conversation, people are saying, you really understand how our English language learner population, how our demographics are changing and what our schools look like with the number of languages in our classroom. Are we reaching those kids? So many of you attended the trauma-informed school session and are trying to figure out how do we meet the needs of our kids and know what they need and how do we address those. If all means all, what will it take? I'm going to ask you about one more. I'm going to bring up one more thing that might not be the best news to hear, but I think it's something else that we need to be paying attention to. If you look at our state's NAEP results, you may or may not know this one, but if you look at our state NAEP results, students who qualify for free and reduced priced lunch in Missouri are actually outperforming the nation students who qualify for free and reduced price lunch. That's good news. But our students who do not qualify for free and reduced price lunch are not outperforming the nation's students who do not qualify for free and reduced price lunch. So I think one of the challenges that we're really looking at too, what does that mean? Let's not stop at proficient. So how are we really paying attention to those kids who we need to push further, higher? How do we move that group as well? So we have all kinds of kids that we're working to address. And if all means all, what does that really mean for our state? So you go out nationally right now, and the big conversation is access. So you'll see that a lot in the ASSA pieces, how are we reporting which kids have access to which courses and making sure that we break that out, which is all good stuff. But in Missouri, I'm not sure that access is the issue. Because we've had resource standards in MSIP since 1990 that talked about access. You all have been working very hard for several decades now to make sure that you're offering rigorous courses to our kids. But what are we doing to encourage all kids to reach their greatest and highest potential? What are we doing to make sure? So I get so excited when I hear about Waynesville. Brian might be in here, but when I hear about Waynesville, and they've increased their AP passage rates by over 80% by really focusing on how are we training our teachers, how are we nudging the kids, a lot of different types of kids, to go after these more rigorous courses. I got a note from Scott Spurgeon in Riverview Gardens of several kids who got 4s and 5s, and he said it might not sound like a lot out the gate, but to allow our children to know and to believe that they too can get 4 and 5s on the AP exams. What are we doing to make sure that we're moving all kids? Is it access, or is it the expectations? Exciting stuff. Another thing that we were talking about was engaging our students in learning. Let me tell you, thanks to each of you, so many of you have invited me to your schools. So many of you have invited me to show us some of the good things that we never hear about in our media reports. There are great things happening in our public schools across this state in all pockets. So if I got to go to St. Joe and meet that Milken Teacher of the Year and talk to her students and hear about what she's doing in that science class that gets them excited about science, or if I get to go to Knox County on the other side of the corner of the state and understand that they have shifted to one-on-one technology, but they didn't talk about the tools. They talked about changing instructional practice and learning opportunities for kids. They're already way ahead of that message that we were talking about yesterday. Center, the kids were teaching me how to drive their robot, which I did not do well at all. But these 4th and 5th graders are steering things around. Or the FFA hut. My first trip to the state fair, and probably too long for me to really talk about it. First trip to the state fair this year in a long time. Walking through that, through their exhibit hall, and having the student share with me how she did research on peanut allergies by using Google Docs and contacting 10 different states and trying to understand how their state policy was designed to address peanut allergies. Kip Victory, where they're working on a special way to do math problems and getting kids excited about math in ways that they were acting out the math problems, doing good things. Afton St. Louis CAPS, great day. Got to visit with kids, got to visit with the community, and it's not just in Afton. I got to see it at the Sparks program in Parkway. I got to see it in Pattonville. We've got it going on in the Kansas City, Northland CAPS area. You guys have started a lot of that work. We are seeing it develop now in Springfield area. It's happening all across the state. Good things are happening there. Malden, I got to drive through, I don't know how many of you get to do this, drive through the blooming cotton fields. It looked like Christmas time to me. I mean, I'm not accustomed to driving through these cotton fields to get to a classroom where kids are showing me how to dissect frogs using their 3D machines and are excited to show me how they're doing this. Such good things. And then I got to go to the Springfield Wolf School as well, where they're excitedly showing me a snake, which I really don't like at all, but they were very excited about, they could articulate. It's not that they were just excited about what they were doing. They could articulate all the details with excitement and enthusiasm. So we're doing some really great things. And that takes me to the next level. We're also working on some areas that we're trying to do better. And so I want to tell you a little story about Normandy Middle School. Normandy Middle School has been working very hard, and in the first couple of months this year, you saw a tremendous shift in their culture there. And so when Andrew Miller, the principal of the Normandy Miller School, was asked, what are you doing differently? What's different this year that's changing that culture? He didn't say, well, we reconfigured our building so that it's a 7th, 8th, and 8th grade center, and now, which they did. He didn't say, we're really focusing our professional development, which they did. He didn't say we're really focusing on instructional practice, which they did. All of these are contributing. What he said was this. Are you ready? We're modeling kindness. We're modeling kindness. And I guess today, when we're thinking about what our kids are hearing, what our kids are seeing, I can't think of a more important thing for us to do as leaders and educators in our state than to model the kinds of behaviors that we wish to see. We must do that. And that might look different in different schools. In Normandy, it was kindness. In yours, it might be something else. But we must model the behaviors that we wish to see in our children. And that really stuck with me when he said we're modeling kindness. And it sounds like it's not just in Normandy. I'm going to show you one of the great things about this job is I get to go out and meet a lot of the people. One person that I met was Johanna Hayes, wonderful National Teacher of the Year. If you ever get a chance to sit down and talk with a group of stellar teachers, what a phenomenal opportunity. But Johanna Hayes, I don't really get a chance to watch Ellen very much, believe it or not. But I got this message that she was interviewed. And this is what she said. Randy, you want to go ahead? Or Brian?
You teach kindness in your class, which I love, and I think that that's underrated. I think people learn math and history and all these things, but I think that's an important curriculum. Don't you think that every teacher should teach kindness and compassion?
Absolutely, that whole thing. It doesn't matter how good your grades are or where you rank in class. If you're not doing anything to help anyone else, it doesn't matter. You know, what have you done? And I think for most of my kids, you know, they've been on the receiving end of aid for so long that they don't know how good it feels to help someone else, to be the giver for once. So when we do community service, they become the givers. And they're different people after that.
Yeah.
And I think people should just learn and understand how important that is. Just nurture empathy.
So what you didn't hear her say was that reading and math don't matter, because they do. What she did say was they don't matter if you don't have these other pieces. And we heard that from both of our speakers this week, the last couple of days. It's so complex. The work that we do is so complex. You can't lose sight of the fundamentals. We have to have them. But we also need the other competencies and our characters. And this is what our job force is asking us for. But you're not hearing anyone say that those other pieces don't matter. What you heard Pedro say so closely yesterday is that if you can get some of these other things worked out, the score takes care of itself. They will learn to read. They will learn to math if they are engaged in the learning process. And again, I thank so many of you who are working so hard to do this. Ray McNulty told it parallel initiatives. You're calling it all different kinds of things when you're embedding this work in your classrooms. But we thank you for that. Our next goal is early childhood education. Now we're making minor steps, minor progress here. We were really happy. I don't know if you all heard about the legislation that recently passed. I think it's a good sign for our state, where they removed the prohibition this year from a quality rating system. It's not mandatory. You don't have to go through the quality rating system. But what it's saying is that we're not going to prohibit knowing whether or not this is a high quality system. Because guess what? Our parents want to know. This isn't about testing little kids. This isn't about requiring different requirements. This is about helping our parents understand and know where are some high-quality systems in place. So we continue to focus on our early learning initiatives. We know how essential they are. You know, when one of our biggest advocates in the state for early learning is George Lombardi, the Director of Corrections, we know how critical early learning is to our state, and providing high-quality access for all kids is really essential. The next piece that we've been focusing quite a bit on is effective teachers. Every kid deserves a great teacher, right? Every kid. And you know, I wanted to find a little bit more about this, so I asked Brad. Where's Brad? Brad, look at back, Brad. Brad, our director of media communications, unassuming Brad, he's such a good guy, said, can you go out and just get some footage of what's happening in our public schools? So he sits and he talks with kids. He's very good at this. I didn't get to see this until a couple weeks ago, but he's been working on it throughout. He's been going to different places with me when I visit schools and just talking with kids about their teachers and why they matter. And again, you wouldn't probably see this in the media, but this is what our Missouri schools look like and how they feel about their teachers. Watch their faces when they get to talk about their good teachers. Go ahead.
She just makes you want to do better, you know, because that look on her face when she's proud of you, of something that you did, it gives you that feeling like I want to keep making her proud.
It makes me feel fantastic that I go to school every morning thinking I have one of the best teachers of my life so far.
I believe that all the teachers and staff members here, they really care about the students. And I feel that, like, with them here, we will mature and we will grow up to be fine adults like them.
Sometimes I tell my mom and dad, like, I had a really good day because, like, my teacher did this for me. And it's just really nice to have a really nice teacher.
I don't just have to go to school. I want to go to school. Wake up earlier, get dressed. I'm looking forward to being in her class and learning new stuff.
When I have the teachers I like, I'm like, yeah, first hour, let's learn some stuff. Let's get going. Second hour, yeah, I'm really excited about learning about this instead of just going through the process.
It makes me happy that I actually know that I have a family outside of my actual family, and they just care a lot about me.
I think she sort of has this special ability to make you laugh, love school, and be entertained.
He is often there for me during hard times, and he believes in me whenever others don't and whenever I don't.
On the first day of school, I was kind of just scared a little, like a little shy and that kind of stuff. Once I met her, I really liked her. She has the can-do attitude.
Because I felt for a long time that I could do everything by myself, and she made sure that I knew that she was in my corner.
The days that I had her, I wanted to come to school. I was ready to come to school.
Well, it really comforts me knowing that I can come to her with anything that I have a problem with.
Yeah, my teachers do love me. I feel like they do. I feel like I'm in another family. Like I have two families.
You're always going to have to remember that she was the one that put the smile on your face and changed your day.
Thank you for helping me. I really appreciate it.
I would like to tell them thank you for helping me get to this point.
I would say that you were one of the best teachers in my whole life, and I really enjoyed having you as one of my 5th grade teachers.
The time and effort they put into us is a lot, and I appreciate all that they do for us.
I think I would just probably want to say thank you to all of the teachers because they work so hard every day.
She's the best teacher ever.
I truly like the energy that she brings to class and how she has something new every day for us to learn and always puts in insight on ideas that we put in.
I would tell her she was a helpful teacher and very kind, and she helped me learn a lot of things I didn't know.
Don't be afraid to try to connect to students. Don't think that you're only obligated to teach them schoolwork and what you have on your objective. Teach them things like how to love each other.
I would not just say thank you. I would probably say you are the most beloved, nicest teacher that I've had.
All right. Thanks to our Missouri teachers. They do make a difference. We heard the last couple of days how that role of the teacher is changing, how we need to work with our teachers, to help our teachers grow. They're excited about doing the work. And we're excited about that. You'll hear a lot about this, though, in the next couple of years, I believe, when we're talking about the equity plan and how do we make sure that every kid has that great teacher. I'd love to tell you that every kid has a teacher like that right now, but we know the realities. And so how are we addressing the equity? How are you addressing the shortages in our areas? What are we doing? And that's something that we need to work together on as a state. And, you know, the research supports this. We've been working closely with Hattie's work, and everything that we've been going around design is about what brings teachers to the table. And it's that collective teacher efficacy. It's that when teachers know when they're coming together, when we come together as an education community, we make a difference for kids. And so those are new elements that Hattie just added to his work, those top two. We've had earlier some of those strategies were listed before, but the top two really talk about teachers' expectations and allowing teachers to know and understand that what they're doing is making a difference. So how are we as leaders of these systems producing that kind of a culture and climate for our teachers to succeed with our children? And that's a question we'll come back to. So I got to go to a meeting with the Education Commission of the States where Gallup produced this report, which really he tied, I don't have enough time to go into all of it, but he tied it back to what does the classroom look like, what do our schools look like, and so what does a great job look like? We have to understand if we're going to recruit the best teachers into our school systems, what does a great job look like? What do I get is actually at the bottom. And you just heard our Teacher of the Year even talk about our students. It's that next level that gives us more satisfaction. What do I give? And then the next level of do I belong? That brings us, if you can build a culture of teamwork where our teachers are working together to accomplish this greater purpose. And then the fourth pillar, the one where you've really got it, how do we grow? And I hope you have taken some time to look at the great work that Paul Katnick has put together with so many of you around teacher evaluation, because it's designed around how do I grow? How do we work as a community together in our schools to help our teachers grow, to develop that teacher collective efficacy, that they know they're making a difference for kids. That's what makes a great job. The other point I want to point out here is they really don't cost money. You look at some of these that I've highlighted in red up there, they really don't cost a lot of money. Opportunities to work, to learn and grow, fellow employees committed to quality, someone encourages my development, and the opportunity to do what I do best every day. Now, when you're thinking about this list of things and you think about what that's like for our kids, and you saw how engaged they were in that activity in the algebra classroom, that they're getting the chance to do what they do best in those classrooms and working together, and our teachers who feel that way also have the opportunity to do that. I think one area we need to look very closely is our principals. That principal is the key figure in our schools who is very capable of helping to create this culture in your school systems. So you as leaders out there, when you're thinking about what are you doing to support your principals to in turn support this kind of a workplace, so many of you, a number of you, I see your faces, who have been working on this leadership development system and on the principal, you'll be hearing more and more about that. But that's a critical piece of making these types of things happen for us. So, a great life, great work balance, you're hearing a lot about that. The opportunity to do what we do best every day with someone there who encourages our development. So I typically don't talk about goal 4, but I would like to. It's one that we've kept internally. It's a little bit about departmental efficiencies and operational effectiveness, because we too are learning from this research and trying to do what we can do best every day and trying to grow our own staff within the agency so that we can better serve our school districts. And let me tell you a little bit about that. I had the opportunity of meeting with Andy Hargraves, who wrote this book, Uplifting Leadership. And he made some pretty telling statements in there. But one of the things that I think, if many of you know me, I have said this before. I go to work every day because I believe that I work for the children in the state of Missouri. It's in our heart. It's who we are. We want to do the bigger, greater cause. We're here for the children in the state of Missouri. I have a great staff here who doesn't hesitate to tell me things, which on most days is a good thing. But they tell me things, and they say, well, you know what? You really don't work for the children in the state of Missouri. What you do sort of impacts them indirectly. But the people who directly impact our kids in our school are the people who are sitting in front of me today. You are the people who get the pleasure of directly impacting our children in the state of Missouri every single day. And so the statement that Andy Hargraves made was, uplifting leadership means uplifting those we serve, our students, by uplifting those who serve them, our teachers. So we've kind of changed that around in our school, in our office, in our agency to say, we're uplifting those we serve, our students, by uplifting you who serve them. What can we do to help you and your job be better to help our students? So I'm hoping you're hearing some of that shift, because they're doing some great things with that. So why, what are we doing? Some of the data pieces that you're looking at, some of the MSIP support and intervention that you're looking at, and how are we really developing tools, online tools that you could access 24 hours a day to improve opportunities, professional development, again, for our students in the classroom. So why all of this talk about the plan that's been in place when we're talking about change? I think when we're talking about change, we can't be afraid of change. We know that. In fact, the worst thing to do is to run away from change. We must embrace change and be ready to work with it. But we also must remain very focused. We must be deliberate with our change. We can't just cave to every wind that blows. You ever hear that? The leader that just blows in whatever way the wind is blowing. We must stay very focused. So we'll change our plan. You change your plans. You should, but remaining very, very focused on the goal. And that's what we're committed to doing. But the change is, we live in a very different world, and I'm going to ask you, I hope you'll participate in this one. Who has heard of Cecil the Lion? If you don't raise your hand, you're kind of blowing my whole next statement here. So, you've heard of Cecil the Lion? Well, I was at a conference a couple weeks ago where Dove Seidman talked about Cecil the Lion, and it will probably make you feel better, too, that about 39 states were represented. Everyone in the room raised their hand. Everyone has heard about Cecil the Lion. And just to remind you, it was about a year ago where a dentist shot Cecil the Lion in Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe. And I'm not going to get into the debate over who was right or wrong on all of that. But what we are going to get into is, I didn't know this. About 2 or 3 days after that incident, Delta Airlines was being lobbied very, very hard to look at their policies on transporting game back to the United States, trophy game. So this incident that happened in Zimbabwe comes back to our American Delta Airlines, where the CEO, where you superintendents or leaders in schools are called upon, something happens way over here, and you're called on to make a very significant policy decision, and they wanted answers right then. It is a very different world that we live in leadership. We must know what our goal is. We must know what our mission is, and we must be able to stay very focused to those pieces, because guess what? In public education, we are all in the same boat. We are all in the same boat. We're in this, we sink or swim together, and I truly believe that. Because here's the interesting thing. I was telling our speaker, Pedro Neguero, again, Missouri is a very diverse state, and I think he thought I was being sarcastic because he looked out in the audience. He's like, yeah, I can tell. Okay. But we are. I mean, we're so diverse on so many levels, and I was trying to explain to him that we are so very diverse. When you think about 50% of our kids are educated by 8% of our districts, and 50% are educated by the other 92%, And when you think about the terrain and you think about the communities, you need to know your communities, you need to know your people. They look very different across our state. And yet, everybody puts us in the same boat. So when something happens over here, you're asked to respond to it over here. And so we must stay committed, focused on what we're doing. Let's work together. We're in this boat together. We want to be successful for our kids. And I'm going to close with one last story. Dan McCullough has the book on the Wright Brothers. Anybody read that? I know you have so much time for pleasure reading here, but it's a really good book. And there's a part in this where he talks about the Wright brothers and their development and how Orville and Wilbur never flew together because they were worried that if something happened, then one of them crashed. They wanted to make sure somebody would survive. So the two brothers never flew together. But there came one day when the brothers said they were going to fly together. They'd been about 6 years in, and they decided to fly together. So they went out to the field. They flew together, having fun. Orville was flying. And there was one person left in their family who had never flown, their father. Their father, although he had been by their side supporting them all along, for whatever reason, never flew with the boys. So on this day, they stopped and picked up their father. Think about this when we're talking about change. 82-year-old man was now going to be the oldest man to ever fly in something that probably felt completely unheard of. Got into a plane, and I'm sure the boys didn't know exactly what to expect. And all you could hear the father saying, Bishop Milton Wright saying, was, "Higher, Orville, higher." And if I leave you with one thought today, it's this. Our students are asking us to take them higher. Let's answer that call together. Thank you, and have a great year. Looking forward to working with you.